This is one of the unforgettable images from Monday's tornado outbreak. A twister, considered to be at least an EF2, passing near a flyover in Round Rock that connects I-35 and State Highway 45. In the footage, you can see dozens of cars slowing down on the road and a high-mast light pole being bent in half by the strong winds. Joining us now is Avery Travis. Now, this video begs a lot of questions. How is the bridge doing today? Why were these roads open so quickly? And Avery, as I understand, you have some answers.
Yeah, Josh, we checked with the Texas Department of Transportation to see how and when they checked whether this tornado had any impact on that flyover. A spokesperson for the agency says they actually do have a team of bridge engineers who are ready to respond immediately when storms like this happen. Now, the agency says in the case of this particular roadway, TxDOT did have to shut down the flyover that night to inspect its structural integrity, but also to safely remove that pole you mentioned that was bent in half. Now, they do say that the closure was brief. They deemed the bridge structurally sound, but its engineers did go out again the next morning to make sure they were evaluating in the daylight hours as well.
Avery, how often do TxDOT engineers have to perform this kind of inspection?
Well, the spokesperson for the agency says they've had to respond to all kinds of weather events across the state, but they also are supposed to inspect these bridges every 2 years, all the bridges in the highway system. Typically, they start with a visual inspection first, and then they'll perform other tests as needed. Now, this particular flyover was built in 2006. Agency data shows that it has a rating of 91 out of 100. A recent report by the city of Austin reveals that is deemed above the average of 83 for the bridges in the Austin area. TxDOT says the deck component of the bridge scores a 7 out of 9, which is also above average according to that Austin report. Our investigative team has made an interactive map of the bridges in Central Texas, their scores, and also their ages. You can check that out online right now. But we are also looking into whether TxDOT is meeting that 2-year inspection timeline. That's a report we're going to have for you later this week. Josh.
All right. Thank you, Avery. In the last 2 weeks, Governor Greg Abbott signed disaster declarations in Eastland County, Jacksboro, and Elgin. We asked the governor whether the state would tap into the Economic Stabilization Fund, better known as the Rainy Day Fund. As Jayla Washington shows us, the question comes as Texans look for help sooner rather than later.
Right off Highway 95,
this is my home, it's gone.
Leonard Wilson, a disabled elderly man, truly can't believe he's alive.
And it blew the bedroom window out and knocked me down. My bedroom door flew off and covered me before the ceiling fell down.
This home and his family for generations now stands frail, surrounded by rubble, ruined photo albums, and uprooted trees.
Right.
Wilson says he doesn't have insurance.
I can't afford to do this myself. I'm displaced right now. American Red Cross came through yesterday and gave me somewhere to stay for a couple of nights.
There's all of these volunteer organizations that come together and they can rebuild homes in a matter of days. And we will be tapping into those volunteer organizations, help rebuild homes here, just like they did in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey.
Most help right now is coming from local officials in each part of the state and other volunteer organizations, according to Abbott. And he says the state is waiting to see whether the total cost of damages will be high enough for FEMA to step in, offering up federal dollars.
One thing that we need from people is to provide information about any damages.
When we asked whether the state plans on tapping into its rainy day fund,
the truth of the matter is there is no point in the legislature that puts money into any of our budgets in order to be able to do that.
Wilson knows rebuilding will take time.
I was born and raised here.
Jayla joins us now. The Rainy Day Fund has more than $11 billion available. Did the governor go into why the state's leaving it untouched?
Well, basically, Josh, he's saying we just don't need it yet. That's because of his emergency declaration for 16 counties that frees up extra funds and resources to help out with cleanup. And then you just heard the state's chief of emergency management say those volunteer organizations are also going to be stepping up, helping out with recovery and rebuilding. Still not clear, though, Josh, whether that'll be enough to help out Texans who need help now.
All right. It's something we'll definitely keep tracking. Thank you, Jayla. Giving you some context, FEMA allows for two types of disaster declarations. One is an emergency declaration. The other is a major disaster declaration. A regular emergency declaration caps the assistance at $5 million for a single emergency. A major disaster declaration opens up more individual, public, and hazard mitigation assistance. Both require an official request from the governor to the federal government.
If our granddaughter had been here, she would have been that little bed right there where that window.
Historic weather events happening one after another. But is there anyone or anything to blame? We explore how climate change could affect the severe weather we see in Texas.